uploading this entire presentation onto Blackboard after class. So if you have to leave, or if you're doing several things during class and you miss something, you'll have this whole thing for you. So your exam is, I believe it's still currently scheduled for May 13th. So it should be next Wednesday? Yes, next Wednesday. And it's pretty much going to follow the same format as Exam 2 and Exam 3. So just like with those, you'll need to email me your work so that I can give partial credit to you. The only difference right now, so it'll be just like last time with multiple choice and fill in the blanks and sort of short answer. And then instead of having that 12-hour window for having it from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., we're waiting to hear back from the provost, but odds are you're only going to have the originally scheduled exam window. Once I get clarification, we're still waiting to hear back from the provost, but as of right now, you only have a 2-hour window for the exam. And so once I get absolute confirmation on that, I will make sure that I send out an announcement to you all, so that way you know. But that would be the only massive difference between them. Just because since it's a common final, we have to make sure that everybody's taking it around the same time. So that way, like if one of you, decides to take it at 8 a.m. and you have somebody that you're friends with in this class or another class and you take it, they take it at 10 a.m., nobody's sharing answers or talking about what it is. So that's the primary setup. So the other part that I want to stress, especially with this aspect of it, is that if you've been taking close to the full time for like the last exams, so once your timer starts for your attempt and you have that 2-hour time period, I really want to encourage you to use this review guide. It's been tailored extremely this semester to be the best possible guide for what your final exam is going to look like. And the only reason why is because you're not going to have as much time to sort of go through and find videos that are on Blackboard or find notes or Google or whatever else that you could have done during the other exams in order to answer this. So you really want to make sure that you do study or have, strong notes on hand. Just because that's going to be the biggest challenge in terms of following your time. I'm trying to think on that topic what else would be important. So in terms of the actual exam itself, it's going to be roughly half as long as exams 2 and 3 were. So there's going to be less questions. You'll still have that 2-hour time period to complete them. But just because of all of that, that still doesn't mean that it's going to be something that you'll finish in 30 minutes. It could be something that you're going to have to work on a little longer. And the reason why we're waiting to hear back is because some of you might have multiple finals scheduled on the same day. And so we can't make the decision to give you 12 hours to schedule to take that window when one of you in a pre-law program or nursing program or an engineering class or psychology class or whatever has a very finite window that you have to test. So we're trying to not interfere with how other departments are doing that. But it's also just because we haven't gotten that final answer from the provost's office. So we're hoping that gets resolved this week. I know the faculty council met on Friday, but we haven't gotten the updated notes from that yet to share out about final exams. So that's pretty much what you need to know in terms of the final exam itself. So it is going to be on Blackboard. I'll have a whole separate link for it. I'll make sure that you can find it instantly so you don't have to search through. So it'll be right there ready for you to start at our time when we get to begin. And then in terms of final grades, so you do have the option to go pass, fail. You'll have that all the way up until, I believe, the end of June. So if you decide that you don't like the grade that you got, you can go in there and change it. You just need to make sure that you read the original email that came out, just explaining sort of how that's going to impact your GPA and everything else. Just because a P and an F or a D all change the weighting of how your GPA is figured out. So that's one thing. The other is that your final grades for me will be totally done by Friday, May 15th at 10 a.m. I have a deadline that I have to submit all grades, so everything will be in and done by then. So that includes the professionalism, that's all of the projects, the homework. I know currently on Blackboard there is a spot that has homework 13 still. We're just going to remove that out so you don't have to worry about that, and the other grades will just self-adjust to be accurately done because homework 12 is your last homework. So you'll know exactly what you have in the class by Friday at 10 a.m. You'll be able to check on Blackboard and know, and then you'll be able to make the decision yourself at that point if you've been debating about going back and doing the pass-fail. So, anybody have any questions on that so far? Okay. So homework number 12, the last homework is due Wednesday. I'll have a spot on Blackboard for you to turn that in, or you can do it by email. I'm planning on putting all of the videos together. Instead of having you go through each week to try to find videos, I'm going to put them all into one folder for you. So if you want to watch them while you're looking at the study guide and breaking through all the topics, you'll have one finite spot to find them all in. And then that way we don't have to keep going back and forth between folders and just trying to save time there. So that's all of the sort of information about the final that I have for you right now. And then that brings us to looking at the review guide. I can spell today. Also, happy Star Wars Day. My favorite day of the year. Just because it's an excuse to watch Star Wars, so I'm all for it. Alright, so your review is pretty long in terms of length. Some of the questions you've definitely seen before, just because we've are trying to make sure that you can identify and solve them out very well. None of it should be new, so there's no type of problem that you haven't been exposed to yet. I suggest if you do want more practice to go back and do the exam reviews for 1, 2, and 3. They're probably the best. Instead of just trying to go back and look at homeworks, the reviews are much more in tune. to everything. And then the first page of the review guide covers all of the topics that we've talked about in class. So everything from exam 1 on problem solving and cryptography, to exam 2 with growth models and finance, and then probability, statistics, and then our last stuff that we've done, which was logic. So there's going to be more of an emphasis on the logic aspect, so stuff that we've done after exam 3 will have a little bit more weight on the final than stuff earlier in the course. And then it's going to be about equal breakdown from content from exam 1, exam 2, and exam 3. If you feel like you're great with the problem solving and the cryptography, I would suggest that you go back and you try to review all of the finance, the growth models, and the probability, just because that exam 2 kind of clump does hurt people, and then we don't talk about the formulas, and since we're not together and person to person anymore, it's a little challenging to sort of practice that fully. So I want to make sure that we do look at some questions on that either tonight or on Wednesday, and we just have a chance to remember the formulas and practice them. So then if you go to page 2 of the review, this is all of the stuff that you're going to be given to use for the exam. So you're going to have all of the formulas, and you can either have this printed out or it will be linked in the final exam. So either one. Personally, I've always been a paper person instead of having like 9 tabs open. I need to have it on paper. And then you'll have your conversion chart. So if you have to do unit conversions, which could potentially be layered in questions. So you could find one thing and then they ask you to convert it to something else. And then you have your percentiles from your z-scores, which was some of the last stuff we did with the normal distribution in the statistics unit. So that's sort of where all of that chunk comes in. And then that leads us into the rest of everything, which is all of your review. So question 1 is all about the different types of financing. So that way, you can have practice dealing with all of that. And then you have your question with paint and conversions. You've got on question 4, so you have conversions on 4. 3, you've got your combinations and probability. Or I'm sorry, 2, you have combinations and probability. 3, you've got all of your 5-number summary and box plot. So I will tell you that the 5-number summary is just straight up what you get from your calculator. So we'll do a quick note on question 3. So this is 3D. So the 5-number summary is just Q1, your median, which is Q2, Q3, your maximum, and your minimum. Okay? So that's the 5-number summary for you. You can get all of that by just entering that table into your calculator and then just running that one variable stats. And then, because it asks for that box plot of your data, if you want to try doing a box plot, which we didn't have time to go over in class, but it was in your textbook, all it is a fancy term for box and whisker. So if anybody remembers from younger in school, box and whisker plots are so much fun. So you put a dot on your minimum and a dot on your maximum along your number line. Then you put Q1, Q2, Q3. They make up your box. And then your whiskers are just the lines out to your minimum and your maximum. So that's all that D is asking for in 3. And then you can find the mean, the standard deviation, and then 3G talks about outliers, So this was from a previous homework. And we actually have an outlier rule. So in order to do that, you want to find...
I don't have a 3G on the review sheet. Yeah, neither do I.
You don't have a what?
A 3G. A 3G.
Oh. You only have 3F?
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
I wonder why mine has that. Alright, never mind. Well, we don't need to worry about that then. Sorry, y'all. Alright, and then 4 is conversions, like I said. 5, you have your cipher practice. 6 is the medical probability. So I would definitely make sure 6 is a question that you practice, because I guarantee you one of these will probably show up on your final. So I would make sure that you go back and practice, or you ask and we go over one, or we meet in office hour session to practice it. 7 is population, so logistical growth. You'll have to determine if it's linear, if it's exponential, or if you're going to have to take a logarithm, so the nth root of the log of both sides. And then 8 is another cryptography practice. 9 is dealing with combinations and permutations. 10 is looking at the type of graph and determining the data that's given and why or why not it would be good to display it. 11 is dealing with percentage increases, so that's all the way back from when we first started class, so in exam 1 material. And then questions 12 is logic, so creating truth tables for each of those statements. And then 14 and 13 are more practice with logic and determining fallacies if they make sense or not.
Will there be an answer key for this?
For this, yes. I just didn't want to post it yet because I wanted you to have time to work on it. And that way you just weren't going through it. But yes, there is an answer key.
Okay.
There's a full... I've color-coded it all. And it breaks down every step bit by bit. So the only big difference would be rounding. So that's going to be big, which is why I'm asking you to please make sure you send me a copy of your work, just because that was a big thing on exam 2. Some people's grades went up about 15 to 20% just because of rounding errors from what the computer scored to what they actually calculated. As well as if your calculator dies or whatever issue, if you can put the whole formula in but you can't get the final answer, you should still get your points for that. So even if you can't enter it in the computer, at least when you submit your work, then it's something that I can see. But yeah, there is an answer key. It's about 10 pages, so it's extremely thorough and detailed. Some of the questions, like I said, are recycled just because we haven't looked at them in so long, so it's good to bring those back, and why rewrite and reinvent. So that's where all of this was going. And then again, if you need more problems, I can pull more. I can re-put the exam reviews all together onto the same place, so if you don't want to go back and find them, I can put them in. It just depends on whatever works best for you. And then in the announcement, I really want to make class on Wednesday very customized to what you all need. So if you want to, either in the chat window here, either now or at the end of class, leave a list of either homework questions you have or topics that you would like to go back over. That way I can sort of adjust what we're doing on Wednesday based off of everything you need, instead of just trying to plan and create random stuff and then everybody's like, I don't need to talk about cryptography when I have no idea how to do medical probability still. So however you all see fit to do that, I really want this to be your time. I don't want to waste, a week trying to come up with stuff that you all might need when you can just easily send me an email or a chat message and just let me know and I can put it on there for us. So on that note, is there anything that anybody wants to look at right now?
You gave us, like, on the PowerPoints, I remember, like, a little differentiation on how to, tell what types of, equations to use between saving money and, spending money and all that different types of stuff. Could you just go over that?
Yes.
What the differentiations are?
Yeah. All right, let me put this back up so that we can see it. Here we go. All right. So this is under finance. So how to tell all of the different equations. So there's several scenarios. There's one deposit. There are multiple deposits. Okay. And then after that, that's when we start getting into sort of a bit more of the other types. So then we have withdrawals. So then that's when we start taking money out. So the big difference in trying to determine all of these, and this also occurs with your loans, which is all of what question 1 on the review sheet is really focused on here. So if you have if you have a scenario where you are, depositing every month or every year, or you're really, putting money in over and over again, then you're going to have annuity. And that's different than a payout. So a payout is when you're going to withdraw repeatedly. So annuity would be, saving money. So, like you want to save to buy, I think one of the questions was on furniture, or you're saving up to buy a house. So you'd want to use it that way. And then anything that's, simple interest, or sort of, it's a one-time thing, you're going to have simple interest or compound. And the key would be that it would tell you which is which. Just because simple interest is most of the time when you go through like a friend or a family member. So I know, like, I would beg when I was in high school, like if there was a concert and I didn't have enough money and I was short, like I would beg my parents, and then they'd be like, well, you have to pay us back and then some. So that would be like simple interest because I owe them, but I don't have to go through a bank or a lender or anything like that to get the money. And then anything for like a car payment or a home loan is going to be all of that payout and loans formula. And then the difference between the compound and the annuity, because annuity does involve compounding your savings, is that this is multiple deposits. With compounding, it's you put the money in once and you just let it grow. So there is no sort of repeated depositing of your money in your bank. So that's sort of where all of these come from, is that you have 3 main scenarios here. The payout and the loan formula are the same. It's just instead of you getting the money, you're paying money towards paying off the principal on the loan. And then you have the interest. I can re-put the table in as well. I can put that up as a slide on the folder for tonight, so that way you can see it typed up instead of just handwritten. And you don't have to like flip through everything, but those are the main big differences that you're gonna see. And this will be retirement as well.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah. What else do you guys want to talk about?
Would you be able to go over how to do like 2B from the final study guide?
The probability you pull out a Snickers bar?
Yeah, second.
Sure. Alright, so now we're going to talk about probability. Hooray! Alright, so your sibling has a bag of candy from Halloween, and you've got 10 Snickers, 6 bags of M&Ms, and 8 Milky Ways, and 3 apples. God, I remember when I was young, they were like, if somebody gives you an apple, throw it away. Alright, and so here we want, what is the probability, so we want, what is the probability you pull a Snickers second if the first item you pull out is an apple? Okay. So, in order to do this, my first thing is, alright, well, how many total items do I have in my bag? So, 16, 19. So I'm going to have, what, 27?
Yeah.
Alright. So, I want to know the probability that I pull out a Snickers second. So if I pull out a Snickers second, and I'm assuming that I pulled out an apple first, how many Snickers are still in that bag?
10.
10. And then, if I had 27 items total, but I pulled out an apple, how many items remain in that bag?
26.
26. Which I can then say, okay, well, that's the same thing as 5 over 13. And that's about, it's a little over, yeah, 0.3846. Or 38.46%. So this question is just trying to, I guess, throw you off, because we're saying, well, what is the second probability going to be if the first one we pulled out is an apple?